So where do I look I'm always looking down.
If you want to look at the
All right, am I
camera,
looking up in the picture then?
look at the camera.
Okay.
Who calls me from out of the pit?
I'm Paul,
I'm Mark.
And I'm Mike.
and we've got issues. No, seriously. Well, we kind of do. This is it came from Saturday night. The show where we talk about what we do on Saturday nights. Typically, it's watch Svengoolie
And cry.
and cry. We do a lot of crying, mostly when our die rolls are bad. We
Yeah.
also play a lot of role playing games on Saturday nights. So if you want to hear stories about that, let us know down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to do all the YouTube things: like, comment, subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you don't miss a single video. Lets YouTube know we exist. Tonight, we're going to talk about Svengoolie. In particular, we're going to talk about the greatest TV horror movie ever made, Trilogy of Terror. And we're back. So, yeah, Trilogy of Terror, 1975's Richard Matheson masterpiece, Trilogy of Terror.
Directed by the great Dan Curtis.
Directed by the great Dan Curtis, has all the trappings you need for a Dan Curtis movie, right down to his standard menacing oboe. Mark, okay.
So here, I'll tell the story.
Okay, I'm gonna let Mark tell the story.
So I am relatively new to Trilogy of Terror. Probably
I failed as your friend.
one of the early times on Svengoolie, I think, is the first time I'd ever seen it. Mostly because as a child, I would not watch anything scary that was under 3 feet tall.
As a child, I was terrifying him with images from Magic when I watched it the other day.
Yeah, well, I had a Charlie McCarthy doll when I was probably 6 or 7, which I had my father burn after I saw Magic.
Why on earth?
Well, because ventriloquism was in the 70s. That was a thing. I was going to be famous. And then I had him burn it after I saw Magic. And so I can't do that. Can't do Pet Cemetery. I don't like with the little kid. No fear, no fear.
You were inspired by Madam.
Yes, yes. And then what else? I even Chucky. So I think I was 17 or 18 when I saw the first Chucky film. And it was just 2 of my friends from high school. Only 3 of us were in the theater. And I was not a happy person during that. So when he runs in the back, no, anything under 3 feet tall. So this really, I just saw it a couple of years ago. Was the first time I'd ever seen it. So.
And then Mike, you're a veteran of Trilogy of Terror, correct?
Yeah, I don't think I saw it when I was little, but I saw it probably in college the first time.
So then it's just me.
Yeah, but I remember, of course. No, I don't know. I might have seen it earlier, but I remember actually sitting through the whole thing for the first time, like when I was a little bit older, and like the first 2 parts, for the first time I paid attention to those.
Yeah. Because most of the time we just wait for the third act.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the first time I saw it, I felt like, wow, there's a bunch of, bell bottoms and giant collars. I wasn't that captivated by the first 2. Now, after watching them a few times, I like the first 2 parts. I mean, maybe not just as much as the third
Yeah,
part.
you got a whole new appreciation
Mm-hmm.
for 'em maybe, or yeah, that's how I am with
Mm-hmm.
the first one in particular, because the
Mm-hmm.
first one, which involves, a little bit of essay, we'll call it, is a great piece that has a great twist at the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of it. I love the story, honestly. If you're watching this, you've probably watched Svengoolie. You've probably seen this a couple of times. You're probably maybe complaining about how many times he runs it.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the thing about this movie is I don't care. We all have movies. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
before I get too far off track, we all have movies that we love, that we watch umpteen times. I can't tell how many times I've seen Night of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
I still watch it even though I've seen it 1,000 times. But and Trilogy is like that for me. It's just so, even if it's a like on Svengoolie tonight, he's ran it several times in the past couple of years. I'm no longer watching it for him. I'm watching it for this movie, because there's so much from this movie that I love.
I like the first part too.
Yeah,
It's a really cool story. And Karen Black is in all three
yeah. She's the threat.
parts. She's really talented. I think
Yeah,
she does all those three parts, and you have different characters in the second one.
yeah, yeah. Technically, she plays four parts.
Yeah,
Correct. Yeah, it's true.
yeah.
Since she plays her other personality.
Since she
Sure.
plays her other
Yes.
personality. Spoilers if you haven't seen the movie. I love Karen Black as
Mhm.
as a actress. I think she's great. I think the one thing I wish that they still had about this movie is a blooper reel,
Mm.
because the last segment, the famous one, the one everybody remembers, it's essentially not only does she play technically four roles, with that last piece, it's a one woman show.
Correct.
It's she's the only human in that episode, in that part of the movie,
Mhm.
and to play against a silly little doll, man, the outtakes had to have been hysterical.
I mean, it does remind me. I think we got in the '80s. We sort of had the creep show sort of
Mhm.
movies, so
Mhm.
the anthology horror, and so you're all. But I think this one works because it's got three strong stories,
It's got
and
three
so
strong stories, and it doesn't have the funny one.
right.
There's
Mhm.
always that funny one in a
Mhm.
trilogy, in a triptych type story like this, and
Mhm.
in a movie like this. In this case, there isn't one.
No,
And I think that really plays to its strength,
Mhm.
because the funny ones are never really that funny.
I
I mean,
kind of think the third one is pretty funny.
oh,
it's not funny.
ah,
Funny at all.
oh,
It's horrifying.
what you're
It's
getting.
horrifying.
You know what you're
It's
getting for
horrifying.
Christmas.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's horrifying.
Yeah, I saw this one with my grandma when I was like 7.
Mm.
So
I'm sure if my parents had seen it advertised, they would have been like, "He's not a. We're not going to let him watch television for a week." No.
Well, one of the things I like about Trilogy is the pedigree of this movie, because not only does it have Karen Black, but the second movie was written by these are all Richard Matheson stories, and Richard Matheson is a author that I could do an entire episode on. Um, if you're our age or older and you watched movies in the 70s, Richard Matheson terrified you at some point.
Mhm.
And not only was he was a prolific novelist, but he also wrote a ton of screenplays, everything from Twilight Zone, which like he wrote the original script for the Invaders, which was like the little Stay Puft Marshmallow guys that were chasing Agnes Moorehead around,
Mhm.
which led to this, which led to the He Who Kills the Prey story at
Mm.
the end, because he was so disenchanted with how it turned out, he wanted to do something a little bit better. But he wrote so much stuff. He wrote the screenplay for Duel with Dennis Weaver, that Spielberg. He wrote I Am Legend. He wrote one of to me, the scariest books of all time, which is Hell House,
Mm.
which I recently read as a full grown adult, and it still creeps me out.
Mm.
So not only do you have that, But you also have the second segment was okay. He wrote the story, but the screenplay was written by William F. Nolan, who wrote like the Logan's Run books
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
ton of other stuff.
Mhm.
The 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 musical score was the Dan Curtis, the guy that like is synonymous with Dan Curtis. So I made the joke about the menacing oboe early on. Pretty much everything he did, I can't for life me remember his name at the moment. And there were a lot of other notable actors in this very small, tight group.
Mhm.
So the pedigree for this movie alone sells it for me.
I think it's interesting too. Like, I mean, nowadays, I
Mhm.
guess it's relatively easy to get stuff out there on streaming. But think back when we were kids,
Uh-huh.
the phenomenon that is the made-for-TV movie,
Mhm.
and the wide variety of things we got as kids.
Mhm.
And so it's just it's a lost art because
Yes.
now I it, I don't know if it's too easy or too everything needs to it's going to have to make a certain amount of money. It's going
Yeah.
to have a certain amount of budget now. Back then it was kind of like I feel like they gave them a lot of leeway. I mean, I'm kind of shocked this made it to television. I mean, so it had to have it's interesting. Like I said, it's a lost idea,
Yeah.
just to try these things out.
We could do a show if you guys want to know more about TV movies and the history of TV movies, let us know down below. Because that was something that this was before cable, way before streaming.
Yeah.
We had like 3 or 4 networks. They were competing with each other. They would make movies of the week. Each network had movies of the week, and we would, as the nerds that we would watch the trailers, the commercials, and scour the TV guides looking for anything that wasn't just a regular drama because there was a lot of those because they're
Hmm.
cheap to produce. But there was a bunch, you know, Trilogy of Terror, uh, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, Gargoyles, Killdozer. I think Killdozer was a TV movie of the week.
Well, then you had all the disaster movies. The
Yeah,
Irwin Allen disaster
yeah.
flicks were all TV
Mhm.
movies. And,
The Car is
yeah.
another one,
Hmm.
another great TV movie.
Wasn't Burnt Offerings a TV movie? I think it
Yes.
was.
It trump for me. It trumps Trilogy of Terror. That's scary because oof, there's something about Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed, which by the way, a callback to last week's episode. We were trying to think of a
Yeah.
Hammer werewolf movie. It was the one with Oliver Reed from like '64.
Hmm.
But the beauty of Oliver Reed was like he could turn on a dime. He could go from being a completely normal person to terrifying and then right back.
Hmm.
His performance and of course the creepy ass chauffeur.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm gonna say if Burnt Offerings was a TV movie, it beats this by a narrow margin for creepiest
Mhm.
TV movie ever.
Well, I mean, because I just remember as a kid, you now the Sunday night movie, which was like a staple in my house,
Mhm.
was always whatever. Well, would be the one time if you didn't see the movie in the theater, you got to see it.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, I remember when Star Wars was run on, I don't know if it was ABC or NBC Sunday night movie, but that was always a big theater movie.
Mhm.
But the weekly ones, you could catch. It was just interesting time. Just the fact that that was available, and you forget that you forget
Yeah.
how much we saw back then on television.
Yep. And it's part of the reason why we don't care if like Sven runs a rerun because we watched them in reruns over and over again because we were hungry for anything that
Mhm.
was not just a drama.
Yeah.
And and a lot of it shaped our opinions of horror, science fiction, and whatnot. But all these there's just so many good ones that came out back then,
Yeah.
and it would be the equivalent of like say Amazon Prime taking a book series and turning it into a mini series and everybody gets excited about it. That's about as close as I can think to like what TV movies were like.
Probably, I mean, until they ruined it. Probably like The Witcher, the launch of The Witcher on Netflix would have been something
Mhm.
equivalent
Yeah. Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
kids, or um, even I don't watch it, but the American Horror, or is it American Horror Story or whatever that's
Yeah,
called,
yeah,
that TV series. I
yeah.
watched the very first episode when it came out, but after that I wasn't interested.
I,
But
I watched a couple years of it. I thought it was pretty decent, but I've since lost interest in it.
that's an anthology series. I mean, you kind of, from what people tell me, each season it depends on who's writing it, what the plot idea is. So that might be the only thing we've got left of something like that,
Yeah,
as far as horror goes.
yeah.
But speaking of, I mean, reruns, I guess we should talk about the elephant in the room. Um, the fact that, boy, or I'm sorry, the rubber chicken,
The rubber chicken.
um, the internet this past week,
Yeah,
since Fenn announced he was running Trilogy of Terror, has just been a terror.
yeah,
uh, we were talking earlier. I think, and even we were somewhat distracted tonight watching.
yeah,
Um, but this was sort of the perfect storm of what people complain about as far as the Sven show.
yeah,
So you have a movie that people claim he just ran last week, which is not true. Somebody did, in his defense, show that it's been quite a while.
yeah. It was
It's been
back.
since 2023 since
Yeah,
he ran it.
yeah. It was
So
in October.
yeah. So, and that was only running. That was just because he had those extra. It was running as an extra movie. Remember, he was running that during the Halloween
Mhm.
season. So
Right.
that's probably the only reason why it got run so many times back then.
Yeah.
But there was that. I mean, we've got some old footage from him on the road.
Hmm.
You've got this Faguli stomp for the quadrillionth time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think this is what people who don't get it focus on.
Hmm.
But you just it to me the it reminds me of watching television as a kid. So if if there's something I don't like, I'm watching doing something else.
Yeah.
I get to walk out of the room, I go to the bathroom, I get a drink, come
Yeah.
back. And we did get a new Sven Squad segment,
Hmm.
which was great.
Yeah. It
And
was pretty
so,
fun.
I kind of like watching how it's almost like waiting for that to happen, waiting
Yeah.
for that new Sven Squad, which I think this one was really, and clearly made recent. I mean, brand. I don't remember that the last time they ran Trilogy of Terror because there was no Sven Squad yet.
Yeah.
So that was brand new.
Yeah.
So even in the rerun that you've seen 100 times, he offered something new.
Mhm.
I still would argue. I wish instead of running 2019 C2E2 stuff
Yeah.
or the Svengoolie Stomp, I wish they would just do a long mail segment.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, if you go to the Sven website, there's so much people post on there. He and Kerwin could easily talk for half an hour about mail and things they've gotten and art and people wearing their Sven shirts.
In the old days, the mail segment was probably the longest segment of
Yes,
the show
it was. Yep.
because it was literally just him reading off of a teleprompter and reading mail and showing the stuff that the kids, the adults would send in,
Mhm.
and him reacting to like I said before, it's the gonzo-ness of it. I don't think he knew what was coming out of the speakers or whatever. Or
Yeah.
I don't think he knew what to expect half the time,
Hmm.
and that was a lot of his charm.
Yeah. And I think you could film those, in an afternoon. Spend
Yeah,
an afternoon, film a few for the next few weeks, and
yeah,
maybe that would be. But but you can tell that it's a lot of people that. And what's funny is that they call us the minions. Apparently, so apparently those that come to his defense are the minions now. And so, but it's clearly people who have only started watching Sven recently.
yeah,
Because all the veterans are like us. Everyone who's are like, look,
yeah,
you don't get it. You're not
yeah,
understanding the whole point of the show.
yeah. Like we get. I've said this before. We get together in a group and we watch it, and I've noticed that on the Sven groups, there's a lot of people that do what we do. It's never just one. It's always a group of people getting together watching the show. And that's part of it is just the commiseration of getting together and enjoying a common thing like
Well, there's a whole thread where they talk about what everyone's cooking tonight
Yeah.
for their party.
Yeah. What are you
So
what are you
what are you eating tonight?
what are your snacks?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
And I know we berate this every week, but it can't be helped because I mean, there's even been a couple of the Sven sites have put out about in the middle of this week. They're like, look, we are a Sven site. We love Sven.
Mhm.
If you don't like it, don't watch it this week.
I don't want to just sit here and talk about what's wrong with the internet.
Yeah.
But here's what's wrong with the internet. If you don't like something, don't watch it. Don't go on the groups and complain about it. Just don't watch it. It's not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure. Don't watch it. Let the ratings show you're not interested, because this is still basically network TV, and a lot of people maybe forgot how network TV works. If a show doesn't do well, it gets canceled.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't like the movie, just don't watch it. The numbers will drop. The powers that be will see those numbers drop and go, maybe we shouldn't do that. And they'll do something else.
Yeah. Well, and it's sort of, I think the other complaint this week was the number of commercials. But again, it's network television. You don't realize how many. I mean, when you look at old DVDs of old TV shows, they're what, 20 minutes long TV shows? If we're lucky, 22.
Yeah.
So that means you were getting 8 to 10 minutes of commercials solid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If not more.
Oh, I remember back in the day when producers were announcing that they were proudly announcing how they were dropping like opening themes, because they were trying to convince you it just means more show.
No.
No, it just means more commercials. So,
and I get it. I'm frustrated. Prime just added commercials again to everything in Prime.
Yeah.
And so, but you only get like two short. So I think people are spoiled nowadays that by not either having ads or only having a few. And so, but that's not how network television works.
Yeah.
It has commercials. But anyway, I know we get on this soapbox every week, but it's just this week was particularly on about it, but luckily, like, the minions came to the defense of the show. So
yeah. Speaking of minions and comments in general, somebody made a comment on one of the groups, and I haven't been able to unthink this. Nobody complains when it's Dracula. Nobody complains if it's Frankenstein. Nobody complains if it's Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, they'll complain when it's something like this. Why is that? Now, why? I mean, okay, I get it. Okay, the Universal monster movies are the archetypes for monster movies. But we've seen those. Good God, if we tallied up how many times the three people in this room have seen all those movies, the number would be probably in 4 digits.
Yeah.
But we don't care. We'll watch them anyway. What's the difference? What's the difference? And here's my question for anyone watching. What's the difference? What's the difference between Bride of Frankenstein and Trilogy of Terror? Please make it make sense. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think Trilogy of Terror is a good comparison. Now there have been I'm trying to think of an example. Ghoulies would not be probably Ghoulies 2 would probably not rank up there.
Well,
but it was fun.
But I'll see your Ghoulies 2.
Yeah.
And I'll raise you like the 4th Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're not. It's not good.
They're not. Yeah, but that's the whole. It's B movies for a reason. That's what I liked as a kid. I'm a kung fu movie fan, so I like the whole B movie idea.
Yeah.
So to me, I like watching. And these are things I didn't because I was too scared as a kid. These are the movies I've missed. So to me, a lot of the 70s and 80s ones are new to me.
Yeah.
Whereas as a kid, I loved all the black and white horror. I watched a ton of black and white horror.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, you're right though. But nobody complains. Nobody, says a word.
It seems like we see Dracula about 7 times a year. It seems like it's probably only like two, but we see all these Universal horror movies all the time on this show, and nobody says
The
nothing.
only thing I can think of is we all know if he doesn't show those, we lose them.
Hmm?
And so I think the only thing I could think someone might say is, well, I would never want to not be able to watch them on Sven. Whereas this quote unquote 80s movie, who cares? Who cares if he never shows it again? Because I didn't like, me personally, I didn't like it.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, but the whole, I don't know, to me, it's nostalgia too. Maybe because we were kids who got to go to drive-in movie theaters and
Mhm.
there was always a second B-roll movie and
Mhm.
and so we watched a lot of B movies as kids.
It
And so,
Yeah, that kinda goes to what Mike and I have talked about in the past about how, like, a lot of the stuff we watched that was not just a straight up drama
yeah,
wasn't necessarily good.
yeah,
It's all we had,
Hmm.
so we ate it up.
yeah,
Like, for instance, the live action Spider-Man
yeah,
series.
Right.
yes,
Wasn't good,
no.
but we ate that up, and I think that's what happens with, like, a lot of the B movies and stuff, you know?
Well, people forget there was nothing called prestige TV
Yeah.
till Sopranos. That did not become a term till post Sopranos. And so television was looked down on. I mean, television was for kids. And actors, I mean, back in the day, it was a big fall from grace if you went from being a movie actor to a TV actor.
Yeah.
And so TV was sort of the redheaded stepchild of the entertainment industry. And so now people are used to it's taken over from films. Now television has just as big a budget
Yeah.
as films does.
Hmm.
And so, but it's the whole and the grindhouse era of filmmaking. We just, it's kind of I miss all that.
Mhm.
We don't um you don't get that as much anymore.
Mhm.
And so, or even as teenagers and young adults, it sort of morphed into sort of the Cinemax movie verse is where a lot of B movies went. And I remember watching more Cinemax B movies as a kid than I did the premiere HBO stuff.
Hmm.
And so, that's
Was it the cinema?
no, it was not Cinemax. It was the horror movies. The horror movies, it was all the B. Those were
Mm.
like all they were all Killer Snake movies.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so uh but yeah, that's kind of now people want $1 million budgets. They want Sven to have $1 million budget, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's just that's not. It is nostalgia. I mean, it's clearly nostalgia
Mhm.
for those times. So
Yeah.
I thought it was clever that they've turned Imp into sort of the kid brother
Hmm.
who that they
Oh,
making
yeah,
fun
yeah.
of. So he's sort of the Bobby Brady
Right.
of the group.
Bobby Brady.
And so he's not. I don't think he's not.
He's not cousin
He's
Howard.
not cousin
No.
as many people would like him to be. But I thought it was clever that they gave him this gift, quote unquote, that was the Zuni doll. So I mean, that was clever. That was pretty clever. That was their gift to him to get rid of it from themselves.
Mhm.
And so I kind of like that dynamic that they're sort of the older brother sister.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would like to see more of the squad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'd like to see more. I'd like to see them keep showing more of the Sven squad. The people sending in their videos. They might not all be great, but it's fun to see other, Svengoolians out there just
Mhm.
that eat this stuff up the way we do.
Yeah.
And to have the nerve, because keep in mind, here's the thing people don't realize. Okay, you might watch this, you might think, ugh, this is cringy. But this takes nerve to be able to make a video and send it in the hopes to get on the show. That takes a lot of nerve.
That and the fact people got to remember, and for me, in the opening segment of Sven,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to focus on the cornometer. It's corn. That the whole show, the shtick, the movies, it's corny.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's I think the heart of the show. I mean,
Mhm.
that's why there's a cornometer that measures. I think that's the heart. It's corny. We're not, it's not prestige television. It's not
Mhm.
trying to be prestige television.
Right.
It's corny. So the movies are going to be corny. The bits are going to be corny. That's what's great about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Sven is like a dad making dad jokes.
Yeah, for sure.
He's probably singularly responsible for my
Mhm.
corny sense of humor.
Yes.
because I didn't know what that kind of humor was till I started watching his show.
Hmm.
And a friend of mine, she was talking one time. My friend Faith, she was talking about how why is it Faith's about 10 years older than we are. She's like, why is it the older a man gets, the cornier his jokes get? I'm like, because it's funny.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. That's the whole point. Yeah, that's what he represents to me.
Mhm.
And so I long for that. I long for the old B movies and you know. And hey, I'll tell you what, if he ever runs a movie that I'm tired of seeing,
Mhm.
I will pop in something else or go
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah. Like I said,
But
kids, don't watch it.
yeah, or I'll leave it on in the background, do something else, and hope to catch the new Fun Squad bit.
Yeah. Because to
So
be honest, that's what we did.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we've seen this movie so many times, but yeah, we just kind of had it on in the background and commiserated. And
Stopped every once in a while to watch a good part of it.
yeah. All right. So, okay, I'm going to pose this question to my, co-host, but I'm also going to pose it to you guys out there. What's a movie you want to see Sven show?
Dracula 1972 AD,
Okay.
which I think he has run before, but I'd like to see it
I think
again.
so too. I think
I'd
Mike
like
and
to
I
see
sat
it.
through it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Right?
We were talking about burnt offerings. I want to see that.
Oh, that'd be
That'd
great.
be great.
Yeah. I gotta go with the 1970s Jeff Bridges King Kong movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just watched that the other day. That was on Pluto TV, and every time it's on Pluto, I must watch it.
I think Jessica Lange's performance in that movie is it's a work of art, and I love that movie.
I do too.
Unapologetically.
Yeah, the special effects still stand up. The
Yep.
message of the movie, kind of the underlying torment of Kong, the strongest version of that. Um, love the island. I mean, you don't get him fighting dinosaurs, but that's probably the only thing. But that's okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great pick.
All right. Well, I'm Paul.
I'm Mark.
I'm Mike.
And this has been It Came from Saturday Night.
Abracadabra, I sit on his knee. Presto, changeo, and now he is me. Hocus pocus, we take her to bed. Magic is free. We're dead.